Part 2, the final ending of my confession today, the other side. I'm OP's husband. We decided that it'd be a good idea for everyone to read my side of this story. So, here we go. March 6th was a pretty boring night, as a lot of them had become. OP had a late meeting at work and I was home taking care of our kids. I'll never forget my 6-year-old daughter sitting on the couch across from me and being sad that OP wasn't going to be home before she went to bed. She said that she hadn't even seen her at all that day. It really broke my heart. Around 8:30 that night, OP got home and gave me the obligatory kiss hello, and then she sat down on her couch to watch some television with me. We watched our show and she went upstairs for bed. I had some business things to take care of, so I stayed up a little later. Right before I went upstairs, I shut down my laptop and then remembered I wanted to check my emails for one more thing. Her laptop was on and open, so I just decided to use hers. We both use Google, so it was no big deal. As soon as I opened Gmail, I don't know what told me to do it, but something in my head said to scroll through her emails. I had never done that before and have no idea why I was doing it then. And then I saw it, an email of a receipt for a hotel about 25 miles away. I thought that was odd, because when we had done our date nights we usually stayed a few miles away. So, I clicked on it and saw that the date was March 6th. I stared at it for a few minutes, then I almost puked. I was not just scared, I was horrified at the prospect. I went up to our room and OP was fast asleep. I dumped the laptop on her lap and asked, "What the F is this?" She was obviously startled and sat up. She looked at the screen and just said, "I don't know, it must be a mistake." I glared at her and asked, "Then tell me, who is his name?" She stammered some more, and it was then I took my lounge pants off and began to put my jeans on. I didn't even look at her and I said, "You realize what I'm doing, right?" She couldn't answer. Oddly enough, I had looked at her text messages and saw the ex-other man and his BW's name there. I walked downstairs and headed for the front door. My head was swimming, my entire world and everything I knew was crashing down around me, and there was absolutely nothing I could do about it. OP came downstairs and sat on my couch. More about that another time. I looked at the front door and then up the stairs to where our children were sleeping. I could barely see through my tears. I was quiet in voice, but extremely harsh in language, and I let her have it. It wasn't pretty. I told her to get her phone and bring it to me. I told her to pull the ex-other man up on her contacts and hand me the phone. I then sent him a text, "Can you call me quick?" He did, and I answered and said, "Hi, this is OP's husband. Want to tell me what's going on?" He hung up. I sent him another text and said I figured that's the kind of coward I was dealing with and he'd better call back if he knew what was best for him. He did. Again, when I get angry, like really angry, I don't get loud, I get quiet. It can be disheartening. I'm sure he begged me to not tell his wife because he had a family. I said, "Well, you little duck, so do I." I then told him that if he ever tried to contact my wife in any way, shape, or form, that I would X him. I then asked him if he truly understood what I was saying to him. He said he understood and he'd be a ghost. I then gave him an ultimatum. He could tell his wife or I would. I told him that he had 10 minutes to do so and I hung up. The rest of the night is a blur to me. I was so hurt, devastated, crushed. I decided not to walk out the door, and I told OP that if she wanted me to sleep in our bed that she had better go take a shower. It was past midnight by this time. She did. I woke up at 4 a.m. and went downstairs and wrote her a letter about how bad things were. I reminded her how for the past several years she had blamed me for every damn thing that was wrong in our marriage. There was so much hurt that I put into that letter. A couple days later, while we talked about things, I told her that I would be willing to go to MC in an attempt to reconcile our marriage. I wasn't ready to give up, even knowing that she had been having this affair for 5 years. There was some trickle truth the first couple months. It set me back each and every damn time. I have to say that was probably some of the most difficult times. The "I didn't want to hurt you" crap hurt me more than most of it. Fast forward to today. Yeah, you'll get more of my story as we go along. I absolutely hate how we got to this point of openness and honesty in our marriage, however. I'm glad we're here. Regarding the ex-other man, I sent his BW an email on D-Day saying who I was and that we needed to talk because her husband and my wife were sleeping together. The next morning, I got a reply saying she was going to try to work on her marriage for the sake of her family and for me to please respect that. What I found out just recently is that the ex-other man intercepted this email, and it was actually him who responded. He continued his life of a lie with her. Until 4/16, a totally out of the blue day. A day that he would never suspect that I would email her. Yet, I am a man of patience and I hate to admit. Smart, see, I knew that him being a lawyer that he would pull the whole. I didn't have physical relations with that woman kind of crap, don't forget. I didn't know it was actually him that responded to my email, so, out of the blue I sent an email with a simple header I hope. The body said he told you how many times they had slept in your spare room and basement. Did he also tell you how many times he asked her to go away with him for the weekend? Well, she got that email, and that is when he was booted out of his house. A few weeks later she sent me an email saying he told her they only met at my house and at one hotel. I was shaking when I saw it but decided enough was enough. I told her everything, every single detail that OP had told me. I can only imagine that her hearing that was extremely difficult. But I'm also certain that it solidified her decision in divorcing her WH. I struggled with guilt for a bit when I was told of the divorce and that it had come about because of my email. It was only a week ago that OPs and my friends decided I was to blame for their divorce and they began to take sides with the ex-other man and stand beside him. Needless to say, they are no longer our friends. I hate to admit it, but I was elated when I heard OM's wife left him. And I truly hope she takes him for every ducking thing he's got. Not just because he's the ex-other man, but because he is a true garbage who got caught, felt entitled to live a lie and lost. My kids are most definitely mine simply by looking at them. They were conceived well before any kind of marital issues arose. So I honestly don't feel a need for a DNA test. I did ask OP when this all happened if they were mine and I just looked at her again with this comment. My kids are most definitely my kids. I'm 4 months out and I'm doing okay. I'm not great. I'm sometimes not even good. I am however happy that OP and I talk honestly about everything in our lives and don't fear hearing tough things. Triggers, I have a few. One is driving past the hotels where they met. Unfortunately, I can't avoid them. Trust me, I've tried to find ways for them to not be in sight, but this is kind of a small town type area. Another trigger for me is probably silly to some, but they mean a lot to me, texting each other. OP used to say on my way when she was leaving work or wherever to come home. This is what the ex-other man or she would say when they would leave to meet up. I told her the new thing to text is leaving. It truly is the small stuff that I have to look out for on a daily basis. My basement, God, my basement. I couldn't even go down there for the longest time, now, though. The mattress they used to screw on is gone and the air is a ton lighter for me. There are probably more things that I haven't even realized that we've changed or that I have changed to stop being triggered that I can't even tell you. Through my entire life I've lived tragically. My father left my mother for another woman when I was 3. I never saw him again despite him living less than 20 miles away. My stepfather cheated, too, but my mother stayed with him, ultimately telling me that she stayed because of my brother and me, my first wife. Well, drumroll. She cheated on me. But since we didn't have children and it was a tumultuous relationship at best, I left. 5 years later I met OP. I wasn't looking for anyone and we just happened. My son was born 3 years later and he almost died when he was born. My daughter was born 3 years after that and OP almost passed in front of my eyes in the emergency room. When I looked up the stairs the night of D-Day, I thought how when they each came into life. We averted tragedy by the grace of God. So how could I simply walk out that door? How could I throw away all that I loved because of idiotic and stupid decisions that OP made? I couldn't. The least I could do was my best to understand why she did what she did, and if I couldn't live with the answers, then I could leave with my head held high. I'm living with the answers. It isn't easy, that much I can promise. She was a great liar, I will give her that. How do I know there was only one and that she's done for good? Because that is what she has told me, trust me, with the number of details I got from her. There's no reason for her to hide if there was someone else. I've told her in no uncertain terms that if I find out 2 months or 20 years from now anything different, then I walk, period. I can only begin to trust. The new rules, complete transparency. Previous to D-Day, I didn't even know the password to our cell company. Now, I've got access to everything and anything. She has a GPS tracker on her phone that she installed on her own. There are no guy friends and definitely no girls' night out. Not that that would happen, as the only ones she did that with were the former friends. This is in addition to communication. We talk on a daily basis about everything and anything. Nothing is sacred, and to be honest, it really shouldn't be. If you can't discuss something with your spouse, then a serious look-see needs to happen. Hell, I'll even talk about when her next period is during an MC session. And I have. Respect, this goes both ways, believe it or not, and even being the BS in this instance. I still have to respect my wife. Yes. What she did was horrific to our marriage and even our friendship. That, however, doesn't give me the right to treat her like a doormat. Oh. I've said some not so pretty things to her. But I did so with a tough love attitude, and it wasn't simple retaliation. I did that 3 days after D-Day when I walked out of the house and drove away. I screamed at her at the top of my lungs that night. I got a lot out. Yet, in the end, that's not me and not my style. It's not that I'm a religious nutbag or whatever someone might want to call me, but I believe in forgiveness, something OP hasn't truly gotten from me yet. I believe in doing good things. So, being transparent, communication and mutual respect are the boundaries we have set on our new marriage. Before the marriage we were constantly together. I've said this before, but it bears saying again. When I was a pilot for the last decade, I was gone away from home sometimes weeks at a time. I think that me being away gave OP a sense of entitlement to have this scumbag over to my house and gave her the space she needed to accomplish her affair goals. I find it odd that this affair went on for 5 years. Yet when I left my flying profession back in October, it only took me 5 months to uncover it. I'm definitely not saying it was my flying job that was at fault. It was, however, a great way for her to bang this guy since I was never home. My outlet before going online. I've got a best friend who I used to fly with years ago. He is the one I talk to when it feels over the top. Other than that, I've also got a gym I work out at and a heavy bag in my garage. Trust me, when I've gotten that rage feeling, that bag has taken a ton of abuse. I just have to remember to always put the gloves on though. Should have seen my ring pinky knuckles after laying into it without them once. My wife ducked up big time, just as much as the ex-other man did. They're on equal ground in that respect, however. That is where it ends. OP came clean with me. Yes, I got a bit of trickle truth, but I at least got the full truth within a month. His betrayed wife got nothing. She was told he slept with OP a few times at my house and at one hotel. The fact is they slept around 40 times, with 4 of those being in a hotel in the last 2 years. All trysts were done at his house because my kids were older and OP feared they would discover him there while I was away on a trip. It was a year or so after I separated from my ex-wife. I met a woman in a dance club on a Friday night and we danced a bit, but I never asked her name. She sent me roses anonymously to my office the following Monday with only the initial M. To be 100% honest, I had no idea who sent them. The next Friday, I was at the club and she walked by me with a sly smile. It hit me, so I tapped her on her shoulder and asked, "Are you M?" Her reply was, "I could be, if you like them." Well, after that she took me to dinner the following week, took me to a nice hotel and the whole nine. The following week was the same, except when we woke up and went to breakfast at a local diner. After eating we got into her car. Mine was at the hotel a couple miles away, and she said she had to confess something. She then told me that she was married and that her husband had given her 30 days to get stuff out of her system. I was so hurt. It was pouring rain outside. I'll never forget it. I just looked at her with tears in my eyes and told her that even if he had given her permission to do this, there was no way I could do that to another man. With her calling to me, I got out of the car and walked back to the hotel in the pouring rain. I never called or saw her again. I don't want to rescue OP. She needs to do that for herself. I am a pretty strong guy with integrity, probably to a fault. I believe in giving everyone a chance. I don't want to be on any pedestal, and if that's where OP has me at the moment, I can tell you I would never take advantage of it. If she chooses to lavish love that she misplaced for 5 years, then I willingly accept it. I think I deserve it. That said, I see and feel her pain. I'm certain this will shock and piss off a bunch of people. But I have actually held her tenderly while she has cried over her imbecilic decisions. Why? Because I love her and I am extremely empathetic. In another forum someone said my story was one that was the only one he could ever imagine, saying I deserved a revenge affair. My feeling is simple. I wouldn't entertain it for a number of reasons, the least of which I have no desire to do so. The second is, why bring an innocent person into this mess? It would only serve to hurt yet another person in the end, and I'm not talking about my wife. As to OP pursuing the ex-other man, in the beginning she was the one who invited him to our home. They called each other and texted each other mutually in the beginning. The last 3 years though, he was the one who initiated contact every time. How do I know? I've been able to go back through our cell records and see it in black and white. I looked at every instance from 3 years ago until March, and every single text or call was initiated by him. Again, I do not give OP a pass on this one single bit because she chose to respond and go bang the guy. She is just as guilty. I don't know what the other man has told the gang, and at this time, the point is moot. They made their choice, and it is to side with the one who lied to his wife and never came fully clean about the affair. Again, why would OP make it more than what it was when all of this came out? They had a 5-year affair, and she has admitted to almost 40 times being with the guy. He said it was only a few times. Well, the cell bill tells the truth of that tale. I'm not a small guy. I'm no stranger to physical altercations. I don't look for a fight, but I will stand my ground. That said, I have never struck or physically threatened a woman. I see that as cowardly. Through all of this, I can say that I don't think OP has ever once felt threatened in any way by me. She can answer to that if she chooses. I have without a doubt shown her my anger in the form of words. And those words are not pretty, and I can tell you I'm not proud of some of the things I have said to her. Yet, that is how I felt, and I let her have it with both barrels of my brain gun. She has not once. Not ever. Been immune to my anger at all. I'm pretty certain that even most wayward spouses would have bolted and shriveled up after just 5 minutes of my verbiage. OP sat quietly and took it all. She took it, she says, because she deserves it. We seemingly covered a lot of ground relatively quickly for one reason. We had a solid foundation in those first 7 years. That is what helps us at this time. I can't explain it other than to say only if you are here in this house would you understand the depth of our relationship. Even though she totally trounced upon my love for 5 years. 1. Remorse. Yep, it really sucks that she didn't have an ounce of it until I caught her. Then all of her years of holding on to that crap came out. I struggled a lot in the beginning dealing with this aspect, because she cried so much and I was like, excuse me. But I'm the one who got hurt here. She heard me loud and clear that day. 2. Respect. When I heard she was sleeping with this guy in my house, yes. It's ours, but, and in my basement, you can't imagine the rage I had inside. Last night we talked about how the phone calls or texts happened. They would let the phone ring once or twice to let the other know they were available. Well, one time, and I remember it vividly, he called her while I was standing not 2 feet away. She answered. I later asked who it was and she claimed it was her girlfriend. She had so little respect for who I was that she answered this guy right in front of my face. How horribly bold and disrespectful. A few nights before D-Day, she and I had a date night. We were going out to dinner. Yet while we were making plans and she was sitting on the couch across from me, she was texting this guy saying that the hotel was set. Yeah. It was pretty bad. 3. Emotional shallowness. She was a master. It's how she functioned and compartmentalized everything. I won't go into her history as that is here to tell. But let's just say this is something she learned a long time ago. 4. Callousness. I'll refer to the lack of respect I just ranted on up there. Lol. 5. Love. I'll let her answer that. It's not in my capacity to even begin to know why she loves me when she could do what she did seemingly easily. The image I think that is out there is that OP was sleeping with this guy every week for 5 years. I know that is not the case. I've looked at all of the text records from our cell company. It is clear that in the beginning they saw each other at the most 3 times within a 2-month span. That was the hot and heavy beginning. The majority of the time they saw each other on average every other month, save for the 7-month span after my mother passed and she refused to see him. Trust me, man, that doesn't make her any better, however. The innuendo that she's lying and that the count of her banging this guy is wrong. I wouldn't put out there that I've seen the text times and dates if I hadn't seen the text times and dates. They are here in black and white. How did her parents would react to the affair? There are so many emotions that we as the betrayed go through that it is almost insurmountable. As we've gone through our reconciliation, I've listened to Opus talk about the pain that she has for what she did. I don't want to sound too harsh. And I've said this to her, but the WS deals with guilt. While that may be a difficult emotion, they don't deal with mind movies. Betrayal, deception, or a myriad of other things that the one who was betrayed does. Yes, they can hurt, but it is nothing like what we go through. The morning after D-Day, a friend and I had started a new business. A diner, imagine if you will. Knowing all of the legal and even social aspects of putting together a diner in a small town area for months. Getting stuff ready to open the doors and welcome people in. And literally the night before going through D-Day, I may have had 2 hours of sleep. I remember being flat out running on adrenaline. I remember seeing my partner the morning after D-Day and minutes before our grand opening and him asking, "Are we ready?" I told him about the affair, a very brief version. He just stared at me. 7 hours later, he still couldn't believe that I had gone through what I did and was at the diner making sure everything was running smoothly. It was fun running the diner. I would walk in there and was almost like mayor of the town. Everyone knew my name and it had that Cheers feel when I would walk in. I lasted a month. I had all kinds of great food around me but lost like 30 pounds. If you love diner food like I do, you can understand. But I could only take so much. The daily, hourly thoughts in my head wouldn't go away. It was tough. But I took my name off the partnership. I didn't go back to the business world for a few months. My background: my biological father left the family when I was 3. It was because he was having an affair and my mom found out about it when the O got pregnant. She divorced him and he totally disowned his entire family for siding with my mom. I've never seen him since. Even though we live less than 20 miles away from each other and have for 4 decades. Mom got remarried to a real winner the next time. They were married for 17 years and after I counted, he had 15 jobs during that time. He was pretty abusive to me verbally and slightly physically as well. Until I got older. That is, I was the constant brunt of his anger. My brother didn't suffer it as much because he was 5 when my biological father left and I think he needed daddy. I did not. Heck, I just didn't want a father. I had my grandfather who I still look up to when I measure what a good father man is. I have a few uncles that I picture as well. We moved out of my home state in '80 and it was pretty tough. Going from a small town to a capital city was crazy. But middle school and high school were pretty normal as could be for a kid who listened to punk rock in the early '80s. I dressed the part, but also wound up in the National Honor Society. I always figured one didn't have to look a certain way to be good. Well, I still think that way even if it is a bit naive. I had a high school sweetheart, who I'm still friends with on Facebook, and I remember the day we broke up when she left for college. She was a year ahead of me, at the end of my senior year. I met my ex-wife. We dated for quite a while, but it was always filled with drama of teenage angst. We broke up in '88 and I moved back to my home state when my mom finally left my stepfather. I don't even like writing that cause he was in no way a father to me, anyway. I decided that mom needed to get back home to family. So I packed up my '79 Mustang and told her we were going home. Problem with my small town back home was that it used to be a mill town. You know the one? Grandpas worked there. Uncles worked there. Fathers worked there. So too shall you. Well, I couldn't do that, so I spent the summer working at an amusement park, and when it was over, I joined the army, incidentally. '88 is when I first started riding street motorcycles, something that to this day is part of my daily life. There's nothing like a good ride to soothe the soul. Fort Worth Airborne was exciting for a 20-year-old. I enjoyed most of my training except for the usual crap storms that happen daily to a recruit. A few weeks before graduation, we were on a field training exercise, hanging out with some buddies for morning chow. Formation was called and we threw our rucksacks over our shoulders and grabbed our weapons. Running to formation, I jumped over a small log in the middle of the trail. Somehow, I landed wrong and suffered a 3rd-degree inversion sprain. It was pretty bad. After 2 months in a cast and then 3 months of rehab, they told me I wouldn't pass a PT test anytime soon. I got the boot. I was horrified. I needed the GI Bill for college. I couldn't go back home. There was nothing there, so I got a ticket for my other home and went back to my girlfriend. That tumultuous relationship was so toxic. I wish I knew it. We got married in '94 and separated in '95 when I found out she was having an affair. We tried to reconcile. I moved into an apartment and she stayed in our house. One afternoon, she stopped by my office to ask if we could talk later. I told her sure and that I'd be home around 6:30, honestly. I was happy to talk cause that usually meant I'd get a piece after. Just being honest here. At 7:30 she was a no-show. At 8, I called her mother's house and got no answer. I called her aunt, who introduced her to her OM. And she wasn't home either. I figured maybe they went to the aunt's bar. So I jumped on my motorcycle and rode a few miles to the bar. I saw her car, which I paid for, parked out front and got pissed. I parked on a side street and went through the back entrance. It's funny now that I can see the workers' faces as I walked in. They knew who I was and they knew what was about to happen. but I didn't see it coming. There she was, sitting at the bar with her arm draped over this guy's shoulder, her eye on the front door. I tapped her on the shoulder and they both turned around. The guy immediately turtled when he saw me. She just kind of gave me a defiant look. I smiled and asked, "What are you doing?" She didn't respond. I asked if we could go outside to talk about what was going on, always staying in control of my emotions and not getting loud or angry. She just looked at me and said, "No." I stood there for about 10 seconds. Everything I thought about life and love was crushed. I slowly took my ring off and the only emotion that came out was when I slammed it on the bar between her and the other guy. I looked deeply into her eyes and softly stated, "Then you just married yourself a bar." I walked out the front door without another word. I got on the motorcycle and took off. I'll never forget the feeling of going back to my apartment as I went over a long bridge and how simple it would be to just point the wheel to the side and stop feeling. It was overwhelming. I could see myself flying over and into the river 100 feet below. I fought through my tears on that ride home and I resolved myself to one thing, to get the hell out of state and go back to my family. It took me a couple years before I did that, though. However, I didn't try to work things out with my ex. I was hurt, but I was over it. And the timeline of the affair. And I thought everything was so great. As a matter of fact, March 2nd, we had what I thought was the best date night ever. We went out for dinner and a couple drinks and really hit it off. I had no idea that she had texted him while sitting across the couch from me that afternoon, letting him know that the hotel for their Tuesday get-together was all set. Again, I thought it was a great night. The following Monday, for whatever reason, I looked at her cell phone after she went to sleep. I saw 5 texts between her and the ex-other man. I was a bit confused because the name that came up was both his and his wife's name. It was the content that was odd. He asked if they were still a go for their meeting. She said yup. Then another text he said, "I'm having trouble concentrating at work." I thought that was odd and wondered who it was she was talking to, but I didn't ask. I had a lot on my plate at the time. Tuesday, March 6th, OP had a meeting after work. She told me she might not get out until 8 p.m. I thought that was a bit long, but her position for that meeting was a pretty important one, so I didn't ask. OP got home a little after 8 p.m. that night and gave me a hello kiss. We sat down and watched our favorite show on DVR. Something we always did. And still do. She said she was tired and gave me a kiss goodnight. I told her I would be up shortly, because the business I was starting was opening the following morning and I needed a good night's rest. I decided to watch TV till 10 or so, and then turned off my laptop immediately. I was upset with myself because I wanted to check my email for business stuff first but just forgot. Instead, I saw OP's laptop open and on and decided I could just use hers really quick. I opened up Gmail and went to log her out and hesitated. Something told me to scroll down just a bit. There, just a few emails down, was a receipt for a hotel 30 or so miles away. I opened it up and looked at it. Check-in, 3 out of 6. My heart stopped beating. I couldn't move. I stared at it and couldn't look away. Then I stood up and raced into the kitchen where her cell phone was plugged in. I opened up the text messages and the ones that were there the day before were gone. Totally erased, but because my mind has a knack for remembering minute details, I remembered his name. I went upstairs to our room with her laptop. Her clock read 10:34. OP was fast asleep. I dropped the laptop on her lap and she sat up with a start. I asked her to look at it. She did and said she had no idea what it was and that it must be some kind of mistake. I said, "Okay, then who is this?" She said nothing. I took off my lounging pants and started putting on my jeans. I looked her in the eyes as I did so and said, "You know what I'm doing, right?" She could only reply, "Yes." I walked downstairs for my sneakers and sat on the couch. I couldn't get up. I didn't know where I was going to go at 11 p.m. I thought about the bar I am known at, but just didn't think that would be a good place to go. I thought of my friend's house, the one who I had partnered up with on the LLC, but then figured he would be asleep. OP came downstairs. I lit into her. Not loudly though, but viciously. I told her I wanted the truth. At first, she denied things, blamed me for a lack of intimacy, and said that it had happened a long time ago. Yet here I was with a hotel receipt for that night. I told her to get her phone and give it to me. She did as I asked. I texted the ex-other man, confronted him with some choice words. We stayed up until about 1 a.m. I told her that if I was going to sleep in our bed with her that she had better go take a shower. I also told her that the dress she had worn, the bra and her panties, needed to be in the trash immediately. I woke up at 4 a.m. to write her a letter about how I felt. I never went back to bed. It was days before my head started to even think somewhat straight. My mind reels still when I think of those initial days after D-Day. I didn't have the luxury of any online help. This is where we are now. OP has finally given me all of the details I need to move forward with reconciliation. She has done a lot of heavy lifting and shown true remorse and recognition of the pain she caused not only me, but us. This is going to take years to get through. Each of us understands that. It's definitely a marathon, an ultra-marathon. My comment: what do you guys think of this our story? Once in a while we get both sides of the story. You like stories with both sides? Comment down below, sub and bell, and I'm going to make my dinner. See you in the next